I knew it when I held you for the very first time.
I knew it the first time I gave you the ball.
I knew it when you were 4 years old because you could not get enough of the movie Rudy.
I knew it when you stood up for others, even when it wasn't popular.
I knew it when you wanted something bigger than yourself.
I knew it when you were in youth football. You understood the game so well. You were coaching up all the other little kids.
I knew it the very first time I saw you play.
I knew it when you faced the spotlight in the 9th grade to win a state championship.
I knew it when they wouldn't let you play football for 3 years because you were too big.
I knew it when all the popularity didn't get to you.
I knew you were bound.
I knew you were bound. I knew you were bound.
I knew you were bound for greatness.
This 2020 class is bound for greatness, and they will make big plays right there inside Notre Dame Stadium. And we now welcome you into our coverage of signing day for the 2020 class. Connor Klingon here with you. We'll be joined by Caroline Pineda later. We'll also hear from some of the signees, but we're now joined by the head coach here, Brian Kelly. Thank you for joining us. Congrats on another great class.
Yeah, it really seems to be one that, obviously hits on all areas. We're trying to put together a class that, fills our needs, but also the best fits. Certainly you want great football players, but they've got to fit here at Notre Dame, and we think this is a terrific class.
And you've had the chance to get to know these prospects over the course of the recruiting process. What are some of the things that come to mind initially when you think about this group?
Well, I think, first of all, you start with the academic piece. All these kids want to be challenged academically here at Notre Dame. They're going to get that challenge. A lot of these guys are going to come in at mid-semester. In other words, they've graduated early from high school. So these are high achievers that are going to start their careers early here at Notre Dame. Give them an opportunity, obviously, to go through spring ball, our winter program, and give them an opportunity to really compete as freshmen. I think that stands out here with this group as well. I think the other thing that stands out is that a lot of guys that have done well in terms of state championship. These guys come from winning programs as well. And so when you have guys that understand what it takes to be winners, both on and off the field, you're putting together a pretty special class.
Definitely a huge asset to this program. And you mentioned the early enrollees. How much of an advantage is that for these players to come in January and get that head start?
Well, I think it's a great advantage when you're ready. We don't force it on anybody. I think you have to be ready for the next challenge. And some of them still would like to stay in high school and either play on their basketball team or, be involved in activities that are still in high school. And others are looking for that next challenge. And those guys that want that next challenge are ready to come to Notre Dame or excited about that opportunity. Those are the ones that we want. And then they get the opportunity to immerse themselves in a new way of life, if you will, in terms of a routine, a college routine, in terms of they're getting up on their own. They're doing a lot of things on their own. And that routine really suits them well as you roll into the summer and into the fall.
And, Coach, we're now in the third year of this early signing period. How much has that changed the recruiting timeline?
Well, I think it's put a little bit more of a push on, some of the summer recruiting. But it really hasn't touched our July that much. I think December this year was a bit of a rush, but a lot of that work was done. We were just touching base with the guys. I think this is the signing day. We keep saying early signing day, but all of our work has been done now the last couple of years, really, and this is the signing day as I see it now, and I don't think it's going away. I think it's worked out quite well. These guys have plenty of opportunity not to sign. They feel very comfortable and not pressured to do so. Like I said, I think we do a little bit more work in the spring and maybe in June, but I think it's very manageable, and I think we make too much of it. I think the timeline is pushed up a little bit, but I think everybody is proactive and has done a nice job with it.
And a great group coming in, and as you said, really most of the work done here in December. Now, Coach, we're inside this beautiful indoor practice facility. First season that you guys have used that. Also 3 straight seasons with 10 or more wins. How much have those things helped on the recruiting trail?
Well, certainly the national recognition of our football program, playing in the playoffs the year before, certainly another, 10-win season the year before that, playing on a New Year's Day game. Those all help in the recruiting process, but Notre Dame and its brand and its tradition now has such that you can couple that with what we've done historically and then obviously the academic tradition. All those work together, what we're doing presently, what we've done in the past, and then certainly what we can do in the future, this being part of our future. So I think all those things together has made us a very formidable school when it comes to the recruiting process.
And you mentioned this Irish Athletic Center being part of the future. This was actually used on game days as a recruiting space.
Absolutely, and I think it continues to be a spot that is evolving as to how we can use it in many fashions. We're using it today, right, in terms of giving it an opportunity to be seen by millions of people today. We use it in recruiting. Certainly, I think we're going to use it for other events. I'm sure our Football 101 will be part of it, which exposes it again to more people. So again, I think another piece to what we're building here and what we have built here, but I think you need to get a glimpse of the future, and this is part of that as well.
Definitely a beautiful space, and this group looking forward to practicing here over the next 4 years. And Coach, after the Stanford game, you and your staff hit the road, flying all over the country. How do you balance all of that travel and finishing recruiting while still preparing for the bowl game against Iowa State?
Well, it is a management issue. I think this year it's even tighter. We've got exams going on right now. We've got to be very careful in terms of making sure that our players are taking care of their work academically. But, when we went on the road recruiting, they were finishing up the last few weeks of classes. And, we had them in the weight room. Coach Bayless and his staff took care of the football team conditioning while our staff was on the road recruiting. And now we're in exams right in the middle of them, maybe to the tail end of them. But we've got a few practices in, but we're shorter in terms of the amount of time we have with them this year with a December 28th game compared to years in past. But the guys will be ready. They practice quite a bit. So I think this is just about getting them to the point where they leave all of that behind, the academics, when they come here, and then know full well they got to pick it back up when they leave here. And they've done a really good job of, flipping the switch, if you will, when it comes to the preparation.
Well, this program has always done a great job of that. The slogan, graduating champions, certainly focused academically right now. Coach, you just wrapped up your 10th regular season here at Notre Dame. We already talked about the early signing period, but aside from that, what have been some of the biggest changes to how recruiting works?
Well, I think, obviously, the landline is not being used anymore. Phone calls were a big part of recruiting. The head coach not being on the road now during contact periods in May, I think has been a big change. So you have to be creative, and certainly social media has been a big part of the change that we've seen. But kids still are looking for the same things. They want a great education. They want to be part of a championship program. And they want to be, building relationships with their coaches and their staff. So I think those things have stayed the same. It's how you contact. It's how you, certainly recruit that I think is a little bit more difficult today. And you have to be agile. And, I think we're in 18 or 19 different states in the recruiting process. So it requires, I think, more than anything else, a staff that is diligent, hardworking, and committed to your mission. In other words, you all have to be on the same page in terms of what you're talking about relative to coming to Notre Dame. You can't be spinning your wheels. You have to really target the guys that fit here at Notre Dame, because you really don't have a lot of time now in this recruiting process to be chasing after somebody that doesn't fit at your school.
Well, Coach, you mentioned all the different states that Notre Dame recruits in, and also this year internationally,
yes,
going over to Germany. What does that say about the program and the reach that it has?
Well, I think first and foremost is that we're going to keep our eyes open to all opportunities that are out there. I don't know that it means that we're going to be international flyers right out of the outset, but, we've done a really good job in the islands. Obviously, Hawaii has been a great state for us to recruit. But I think we also are always going to keep our eyes open for great players wherever they are. Chase Claypool out of Canada is another great example of that. And, obviously this year, we got Alexander coming out of Germany. I just think that more than anything else in this recruiting process, you can't have blinders on and say we're just going to recruit in this geographical area. And I think our staff has done a great job with that.
Certainly has over the years, this year as well. Coach, congratulations again on the 2020 class, and thank you for the time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks again to Coach Kelly. Next up, we will have a FaceTime call with defensive end Alexander Ahrensberger coming over from Germany, the first signee today. Here was his FaceTime from this morning.
We're connecting. Oh, you're driving?
Hey, what's up?
What's up?
What's up, Alex? What's up, Coach?
How we doing, big fella?
Good. Just on the highway at the moment. Sorry for that.
Oh, that's okay. We'll take your commitment anywhere, your signee anywhere. Congratulations, man.
Thank you, sir. Can't wait to enroll in January.
Yeah, we can't wait to get you here.
Yeah,
where are you headed right now?
We're heading to the location where we'll do the signing stuff and all of that. So got a little caught in traffic, which is why we're a little late, unfortunately.
Well, hey, no worries. We're excited. Coach Lee and I, we just left the meeting. We were game planning how we're going to use you in our package moving forward.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Can't wait to make an impact.
That video you put out yesterday was impressive.
Yeah, I hope you liked it. Yeah, I filmed it with my strength and conditioning coach and just wanted to give something back.
Yeah, well, we couldn't understand anything you were saying, but we liked the way it looked.
Hey, listen, Coach Elson we got excited about watching your workout, but more importantly, it got us in the weight room last night. Coach Elson and I got in there and started working out ourselves. You got us motivated, man.
Yeah, I'm sore today, though.
That's awesome.
How you feeling, man? You feeling good?
Yeah, definitely. Feeling
Is your
great.
family with you?
Unfortunately, not. They have to work as I'm in Berlin.
Your brother's in Berlin, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. But he has to work too, unfortunately. But I'll be back home tonight. I'll be back home tonight and see them, so that shouldn't be a problem. Good. Already called them in the morning, and yeah, they're all happy about it. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, listen, have a great celebration today with your friends and your family, and we look forward to getting here in January.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it a lot.
All right, buddy.
Congrats, Alex. Good to see you, man.
Awesome.
All right, be safe with all your traveling.
I will. Thank you, sir.
All right.
We'll see you.
Go Irish.
Thank you. Go Irish.
A great FaceTime there from Alexander Ahrensberger, the defensive end coming from Germany with Coach Elston and Coach Lee. They are excited about him coming in, and he even motivated them to get into the gym. Well, next up, we'll have Caroline Pineda with defensive coordinator Clark Lee.
Thanks so much, Connor. I'm here with Coach Clark Lee. And Coach, another recruiting cycle almost under your belt. What excites you the most about this class?
Well, I think we added a lot of pieces that we need, skill in the secondary and length up front. And, we got a bunch of guys coming in early, which is going to be a huge advantage for us. And so anytime you get new players, it's exciting, right? It's like an early Christmas. So we're fired up around here and excited to finish the day off.
And you talked about those guys coming in early, almost half your class. How valuable is that time for them and for the coaching staff?
Well, when you think about it, you insert these guys in winter conditioning, so they get this winter cycle and then spring ball into summer, and then they really have a chance to launch into the fall and contribute to the 2020 season. And it's not that Kyle Hamilton came in the summer, and obviously he had an impact for us this year, but just the benefit of being here, acclimating to school, acclimating to what the strength program is like, and then obviously getting really involved in the schematics of the defense really gives you the best advantage to launch into the fall.
Well, this coaching staff has really stressed how much you guys look for guys who are a good fit for this program. How do you feel like this class embodies that?
Well, I think it's, each one of these guys went through a thorough vetting process in recruiting. We built relationships. They know how we tick. They know the program that Coach Kelly's put in place here, and they all bought into it. And I think when you take your time and you're thorough, you want to make sure that they fit your needs as far as what you're going to demand of each position, but more importantly for Notre Dame, that they're going to acclimate into this campus environment and really kind of tie into the community. That's so important here. So each one of these guys is going to do that, and they're going to add to both to the value in the classroom here and obviously to the product on the football field.
And you talked about your early Christmas, so the third year of this early signing period. How does that change recruiting?
Well, it obviously the speed with which we build these relationships and make decisions, and it takes a little bit of the pressure off February, obviously, but no, I think it helps. We get a chance to get these guys signed up. We get to, they have a celebration, particularly the ones that are coming in early. And then, when you go out in January, in a lot of ways, you're really kind of looking towards the next group. And so it's changed a lot just in terms of the timing of things. But I think it's been overall a positive for us.
Well, enjoy the rest of your early Christmas. Congrats on another great signing period.
Hey, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Back to you, Connor.
Thank you, Caroline. And we're now joined by recruiting coordinator and the special teams coordinator here at Notre Dame, Coach Brian Polian. Coach, once again, congratulations and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Well, another tremendous class in the door, and recruiting's always really a team effort, but for some of the people who don't follow recruiting as much, how could you explain your responsibilities as the recruiting coordinator?
Well, it's no different than being the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator. It's my job to see our recruiting board through the head coach's eyes. It's to keep everybody pointed in the same direction. We have different facets of the recruiting program, from on-campus visits to the graphics to the evaluation phase of recruiting. So it's my job to kind of make sure that everybody is running smoothly in those areas and just kind of point the ship in the right direction. Ultimately, I work very closely with both coordinators and with the head coach in terms of the evaluation piece of it. But often, the guys on any specific side of the ball see the world through, their vacuum. And it's my job to work with Coach Kelly and make sure that we're seeing the big picture and addressing our needs in any given class as we move forward.
So with running that and putting it all together, how great of a day is this to see it all come to fruition?
It's the culmination of a lot of hard work by a lot of people, and it's really neat to share it with the prospects, to visit with them and their families, and have the opportunity to see those smiles. And we become a little bit jaded, right? That this is my 23rd signing day, so we become a little bit jaded to it. But it's good to be reminded of how special a day it is for the young men and their families, and the excitement. And a scholarship to the University of Notre Dame is a pretty big deal. And for a lot of our guys, you're talking about the first ones to go to college and their families, and they come from, very diverse backgrounds, and to see them get the opportunity to come to a place like this, pretty cool.
Well, certainly a great moment for all of these young men. Something that's been more of a recent development in recruiting with the dawn of social media is these prospects actually get to know each other a little bit better before they get to campus. How great is that for you as a recruiting coordinator, knowing that some of these players have relationships before they even get here and enroll at Notre Dame?
It's a very powerful tool, and you have guys like Drew Pine that's been committed for a long time and was kind of a ringleader of this class, and others like him. When they develop those bonds, it can really help you gain a lot of positive momentum. And frankly, they recruit one another because these guys want to be surrounded by the best possible players. So from that point of it, it's pretty cool.
And they've certainly done a great job of that. And you mentioned being surrounded by the best possible players. But at a place like Notre Dame, obviously academics are very important. Character is very important. How do you determine if a particular prospect is a good fit for Notre Dame?
Well, fit is the single most important thing that we have to gauge. And it's not just the academics. There's a cultural fit here. And what we have learned over time is that very talented players that don't fit here will never reach their true potential. Guys that do fit here sometimes will outperform what we thought they were capable of. But the first step in that process is to be very transparent about, here's who we are. Here's what the expectations are. There are not going to be online classes here. The expectation is that you're going to be in the classroom setting with your peers. There's no football dorm here. You're going to live with the student body on campus. All the things that make us unique. I'm not saying they make us better or worse. They just make us unique. So at the very beginning of this relationship that we build with the prospect and their families, we're very transparent about this is not a 55,000 student state institution, and there's very demanding academic curriculum, and this is a faith-based institution. We don't hide from any of those things. So that when a young man decides to pick us, they pick us knowing full well who we are and what we stand for. And then as we develop these relationships, if we have concerns about fit, we've got to have the courage, we've got to have the conviction to maybe step away from a good player, knowing that, hey, this might not be the best match here. And that's hard to do sometimes because obviously you admire somebody's physical abilities and God-given gifts, but if they don't fit, it's not going to work, and you got to be able to walk away from that. And I think in the last 3 or 4 years, we've done a better job of getting back to that, and I think you can see that in our retention. We're not a school that's got 12 guys that jump into the transfer portal at the end of the year because guys are picking this place for the right reasons.
Well, it's certainly a great group coming in, and all of them tremendous fits here to Notre Dame. And you're a school that really recruits nationally and even in this case internationally. What does it say about Notre Dame to be able to have, more than 10 different states represented and also a foreign country with Alexander Ahrensberger coming from Germany?
Well, as it relates to Alexander, I was teasing Coach Elston, who took that flight in the springtime to go evaluate him, and the big deal was, boy, that's a long flight. I still think Chicago O'Hare to Honolulu is a little longer. I think we might have to settle a bet with that one. The reach of Notre Dame, the brand of Notre Dame, how many places could do that? And I think, frankly, the growth of American football from a worldwide standpoint, as a special teams coach, we're seeing this influx of Australians into college football. The punter from USC is a 24-year-old Australian that started in Australian rules football. The growth of our game in general. But when you look at, I think our tally today will be 15 or 16 different states, a student athlete from Germany. Chase Claypool comes from the western part of Canada. Our brand is recognizable. We're not a regional school. And we used to say in recruiting we're a national brand, but in reality we've become an international brand. And that offers a unique opportunity for us to literally recruit ocean to ocean. In this class, we have 2 from New Jersey and 1 from Hawaii, and a lot of places in between. And there aren't very many schools in the country that can make that reach and do so successfully. So it's a powerful brand, and it's one that it makes recruiting here a lot of fun because we have such a diverse group. But so is our student body. 50 states and I think nearly 70 foreign countries. So we tell recruits all the time, we come from everywhere. Our students come from everywhere. Our team comes from everywhere. The one thing that binds us all together is the love for Our Lady's University.
And that's definitely true across this university. And, Coach, we mentioned at the top you're the special teams coordinator. John Shannon just won the Manley Award.
Yeah.
This year you have Alec Spikes coming in at the long snapper position. What can you tell us about him, and how is it different recruiting a specialist versus any other position on the field?
Well, I compare recruiting a specialist to recruiting a quarterback. You're not going to take one every single year. You're going to take one when there's a need. The film part of the evaluation is important, but you have to see them work in person. So this is 2 years in a row now. Last year we signed Jay Bramlett as a true freshman, and that was a world tour of all over the country and evaluating guys in person and seeing if we could find the right guy, and we certainly did so with Jay. I think has been really, really good as a true freshman. And that was part of the challenge too now with Alex is not only do we need somebody who can do it and handle the bright lights of Notre Dame, but we need somebody who can do it as a true freshman, because obviously John's going to go on and do bigger and better things away from football. So he's an elitely skilled. It's a very unique talent. It's a very specific skill that he's got. Plus, I think he's a pretty good athlete, and I think that was really a separating factor for John Shannon. He's a great snapper, but was a factor in coverage and made a lot of plays, and I believe Alex will be able to do that as he gets a little older and stronger, but got a great demeanor. He's so even-keeled. Reminds me of Jay Bramlett in that demeanor, that he's not too up, not too down, and that's really important for us in terms of what we do. We got to have a very calm demeanor, which is ironic coming from me, because on game day I'm running around like a nut job.
Well, we're certainly excited to see what he can do at the long snapper position and what all of these young men can do. Coach Pullian, thank you so much for the time today, and congratulations.
Thank you very much. Go Irish.
Well, thanks to Coach Brian Pullian for his time. Coming up next, we have a FaceTime with an offensive line prospect, Mike Carmody, who signed this morning.
Oh, that a boy. Be fixing your hair. You look good.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm going to step out and let Coach Quinn step in, but I want to say congratulations, and we're so happy to have you be part of this family.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, kiddo. Here you go.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, Mike, just wanted to congratulate you, man. Coach
Thanks,
here.
Coach Reese.
Go win state in hoops for your dad, but great job.
Yes,
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Should be an awesome day. We can't wait to get you here on campus.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, Coach.
How you doing, Michael?
Doing awesome.
Oh, man, congratulations.
Thank you.
Awfully proud of you. Quite a journey to get to this point, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'll tell you what, your family has been awesome in this process and supporting you, and certainly very excited. Congratulations on that great win against Franklin the other night.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, how many rebounds did you get?
26.
26 rebounds, taking control of things, man. That was awesome. I know you got some big games coming up. Looking good, feeling good. I tell you what, one of the great stories that I heard from you guys was when you were a young boy going into Chicago for that basketball tournament, and you guys stopped by Notre Dame for that first time. And you went to the bookstore and bought the T-shirt, and you never took it off for the entire summer.
Yes, sir.
Well, here you are. I know from the entire coaching staff here at Notre Dame, entire offensive line, we couldn't be more proud and excited to have you continue doing what you're doing in the classroom and now at the basketball field or basketball court, and we'll certainly look forward to getting you here this summer.
Yep, can't wait, Coach.
All right, what do you got planned for the rest of the day?
Doing a little ceremony and then leaving for Florida.
That's good. How many games you guys have down there?
I think only 3.
Okay. Well, congratulations, and certainly please pass along our very best to your family. Enjoy the day.
I will, Coach.
All right. Go Irish.
Go Irish.
All right. Take care.
Well, Mike Carmody, an exciting addition along the offensive line, a tremendous basketball player as well. Well, next up, we have the press conference for Coach Brian Kelly, where he'll talk through each of these recruits in the 2020 class.
Certainly excited about the signing class of 2019 here. We may have room for one more. We'll see how that plays out this afternoon. Just a great group that represents all the things that I'm looking for and our staff has been charged to find when it comes to recruiting football student athletes to Notre Dame. Number one, fit. And when we talk about fit, cultural fit, academic fit, and certainly they've got to be able to fit as it relates to the skill in the classroom and on the football field. All these young men are going to develop here at Notre Dame and graduate and contribute to championships. And so that was our charge. I think we've done a great job in, certainly filling potential needs that we have, but also addressing areas that I think more than anything else bring not only positional needs, but personality, competitiveness, and overall football awareness and instincts into our program. Sometimes we get caught up with, looking at the depth chart and saying, well, I need another cornerback here, I need another wide receiver here. These are football players that also have the ability to play on either side of the football as well. And not that we're in here to talk about guys that could, change positions, but what struck us about these guys is that they excelled both on offense and defense in high school, and we love that about players that have that competitiveness. So the other thing that stands out, obviously, is early enrollees, the ability to want to take that next challenge. We like the fact that 9 of these young men have accepted that opportunity to come here early. They have excelled in high school to the point where they can, in fact, graduate early, come to Notre Dame, and look at the next challenge, and that being here, obviously, in a collegiate environment. Doesn't mean that they're better. It just means that they are accepting a challenge that is a bit different. And so those 9 will get a chance to begin their college career and obviously get a chance to be in spring ball and get working on their academic career. Number of states represented, we love the fact that we've got diversity within our ranks, great diversity throughout our student body that is reflective in this class as well. International representation with Alex Ahrensberger, obviously from Germany. And again, this does not mean we are going to turn into an international juggernaut in the recruiting world, but it does mean that we won't have our blinders on when it comes to recruiting. We will search and find the best fits for our football program wherever they may be. We continue to tap into the great state of Hawaii. That has been one that we're very proud of, and the history and tradition that we're building there in that state with another young man in Jordan Botello coming from a great Catholic school in St. Louis School. So some really neat pieces to it. I like the length of our corners in particular. I just think that, when you look overall, offensive line, size, speed, an exceptional class when it comes to those intangibles that you're looking for. I think we did a great job in terms of the calendar. This is 2 years in a row now that, this quote-unquote early signing day, this is the signing day for us. So I don't know why we continue to call it an early signing day. It is the signing day, and it will be moving forward. There are some challenges there, but nothing that has really kept us from keeping our staff out of here in July and giving them a great break. So I think it's worked out quite well to have these guys all sign here in December. Obviously, a great job by our recruiting office led by Aaron Kearney. He's done an incredible job, Jazz, and the entire staff, Coach Polian, everybody that puts together our weekends, Jack Swarbrick, our entire admissions. Bob Monday, who just retired, was a big part of this class. Don Bishop. Just there's so many people to thank. I'm sure Brian will pick up the slack for me in those areas relative to thanking all of those people. But just I think the overall tenor here is that this is an exciting class. Guys that can come in and compete for us immediately, and then having the 9 early enrollees. Pretty excited about the group coming in. So with that, let's start with any questions that you folks might have about this class.
Brian, this is an unusual class for you in that there wasn't movement in or out of your class. You didn't lose people to deep commitments. You didn't.
Did we lose any last year?
I think there was one. There was another year where you didn't have any, but you also didn't take somebody from another class, which is something that's
happens.
Yeah. Is it the? Do you think it's just evaluating guys earlier and the recruiting calendar changes that maybe lend itself to that?
I think so. I think having this process be one where you're on them earlier and have identified your prospects earlier. It feels like we've been recruiting these guys a lot longer for me, and having a longer time in a relationship with them. That makes a bigger difference to me. I think that and feel that way over my time here, that this is one where we've established, I think, a better calendar and a deeper evaluation, protocol, in a sense that we're on them sooner and have been able to build that relationship.
Isaiah Pryor's an interesting guy to me because he's going to be a grad transfer with a couple years, doesn't have a history of injuries. Is kind of your threshold for grad transfers health and a potential starter when you're shopping now?
Certainly, and you have to have a connection and somebody very familiar. And Kerry Combs, who was on my staff, I'm very close with Kerry, and Kerry recruited him, coached him, and was a strong advocate for him. So, that has to be part of that recruiting process too. When we're talking about transfers, there has to be some connection there with certainly the other things that you talked about, years of eligibility. We'd be very hesitant if we had, injuries at a position that requires contact like that. If it was a shoulder at a wide receiver position, we'd probably be less concerned. But a safety, if you have, shoulder injuries, that would be certainly a red flag.
I believe Chris Tyree isn't one of the early guys coming in.
Chris Tyree is early.
He is early, okay.
He's not. Chris Tyree is not.
Okay, so you have him listed at 179. I think he's a little bit heavier than that. What's the ideal size for him coming in? What are your hopes for him coming in the door as a freshman?
So a general rule for all of our guys is when they get in, they'll meet with Coach Bayless, they'll meet with our nutritionist, and we'll begin the process of developing them from where they are. So if whatever he is, 175 pounds, we'll then begin that process based upon when we do our testing and find out where that right number is. So it's hard to say right now what it is, but we'll develop him naturally from that number and continue to build a coat of armor on him once he gets in here.
I would imagine getting to Dusseldorf isn't that much harder than getting to Honolulu, but...
Yeah, I agree. Probably it's easier.
Okay, but the investment in a guy like Ahrensberger and the projection of him, what tipped you to saying this is worth sending Mike Elston over there, this is worth trying to figure out what this film's going to look like in America in a couple of years?
Two things, length and, I think just his ability to change direction. So where that end product would be, you've seen the development of our defensive line where it came in and where it is. We want to continue to look towards that model where those guys can be looked at as elite players as they develop. We can see him as an elite player as he develops in the program. So for us to invest all that time, we have to be able to see him develop in our program as an elite player down the road. And to do that, you have to have elite traits early on. You can't be 6'1", and somebody that can't stand out in a crowd. And 6'7" with really good foot agility and quickness, that stands out early on.
What I'm wondering is, how do you view the timing of Chip Long exiting the program as it pertains to National Signing Day, do you see as a positive that you had a chance to kind of discuss that change before the kids actually officially committed?
I think we have all the guys that we recruited. I think Eric, answered the question. You know, all these guys, we had deep, long-standing relationships. Not one guy recruits here at Notre Dame. It's not your guy. It's our guy. I recruit him. Coach Polian recruits him. We team recruit. That's how we do things here at Notre Dame. And Notre Dame recruits to Notre Dame. So no one person is stronger than the university. And for those guys that decide to go to schools based upon one individual, then you're left up to those kinds of, decommitments based upon singular relationships. That's never how we've recruited here at Notre Dame, and that's not how we'll ever recruit.
And I'm sure you don't pay much attention to recruiting rankings, but Xavier Watts seemed to be pretty underrated. In terms of his on-the-field traits, what made him such a sought-after recruit by your staff?
Just a serious, focused competitor. I mean, just everything about his demeanor. You know, I talked a little bit about this in my opening remarks. You got to read into ball players a little bit more when it comes to, their demeanor and how they can impact others. This is a serious individual that takes his craft, that takes being a competitor and a winner to the next level, and he's going to influence others around him. That's really what stood out. Certainly he's got all the skills, but everybody's got the ability to play at this level. We just love those other things about him.
Brian, to your right. This class has a lot of skill talent on offense, but not just at specific positions, but kind of widespread. You guys have elite guys at offensive tackle, wide receiver, running back. Why were you guys able to have so much widespread success across the offense, and the message was resonating at different position groups this year for you guys in this class?
I don't know where to start. I mean, we began with a plan early on in terms of identifying the needs of this class. We built great relationships early on, stayed with it, have had really good success on the field over the past 3 years while we were recruiting. Great recognition. Notre Dame, obviously, in itself has its own ability to sell itself from an academic standpoint and a community standpoint, and consistency in messaging throughout that entire period of time. So, long-standing relationships, success on the field over a long period of time, and then I think Notre Dame continuing to be who it is and who it's been. Has allowed us to, put together, an elite class.
How much of the focus on offense was a response to the Clemson game and then the playoff, and maybe not being able to score as much as you'd like to in that kind of a setting, and maybe pitching to those guys that are making them believe that maybe they're a part of being the answer to those issues?
Yeah, we never, go into a home and talk about, what we can't do. It's what we can do with you. And what it would look like adding you to this. So I think when it comes to, each one of these guys, it's picturing yourself, here's where we are, here's where we can go, adding you to the success that we've already had. So I think painting that picture is certainly important, but we certainly do it from a positive perspective, and then, let them take it from there.
With wide receivers, and certainly you have nothing to do with the rankings, but if you look back at the rankings that a lot of these guys get, it's very inconsistent in whether the guys that were highly projected turn out versus maybe guys were lower projected end up turning out. What is it about that position that maybe is a little bit more unpredictable in projecting, or maybe it's not, in your opinion, you think it is easily projectable?
Styles of offense, quarterbacks, all those things. The developmental process there It's just huge when you go from high school to college in terms of all the things that are available to you in terms of developing that position. So it makes it really difficult to clearly say, other than maybe a few players at the top end of that spectrum, a lot of those guys are in that area of developmental. And so it's been that way for a while. We've seen that. We can just use, Claypool and Fuller as a couple of examples that will be elite players. So, certainly there is a few players at that top end, but that position in itself is open to so many other different variables as you go through the process.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Brian, you said you could add right here. You could add to the class maybe later today, but in February, that second signing date, is there? And I know you said it's not necessarily by position, but on the second signing date, would there be a specific position that you might be inclined to add to this class?
It'd probably just be on the offensive side of the ball. Yeah.
Okay. In terms of best fit, the best Notre Dame fit, the kid that projected best to Notre Dame, who is that in this class?
Oh my! You can't do that to me. I mean, these kids are.
You can throw out a couple names.
Okay, how about all of them?
No, you got.
Look. I think here's the great thing about Notre Dame. If you talk about its history and tradition, it was the ability to attract those that could come from tough backgrounds. All over. We've become homogenized a little bit maybe in our student body, but our football, the cross section of the players that we have in this program, it's pretty amazing in terms of the diversity of the group. But they all have one common thread, and that is they want to be challenged in the classroom and they want to be challenged on the football field. And so that's the common denominator that keeps these kids coming from all over the country, from the West Coast to the East Coast. And look, and that has to be part of the recruiting process, and the transparency within has to be that. Look, you're going to get challenged here. And if you're not up for that challenge, we're not the right place for you. And that transparency has been effective for us in the recruiting process.
You may answer this question the exact same way, but on the flip side, the player that maybe didn't project, or the player that you had to turn and really convince that Notre Dame was a good fit for him?
Well, I think there's several of those guys that take that take germinating, if you will, that you have to stay with it. Look, I believe that we have done a great job identifying who those players are, and that we believe that they fit. They may not believe that they fit early on. Mm-hmm. And so it's that process of us staying with them and continuously showing them who we are and what our distinctions are, and staying with that and not falling off and saying, again, here's why we believe this is the right place for you. I think there were several of those guys that we had to stay with and continue to show that. Chris Tyree, I think, is a great example of that we needed to stay in there with him and continue to show the reasons why Notre Dame was the right place for him. And I don't think he's the only one. I think there are others that I could look down on this list that are part of that. So as much as we see it in them, sometimes they don't see it, and we have to be diligent and not be afraid of sticking with it and making sure they get that message.
You mentioned the length of the three defensive backs and, the three that have signed. When you recruit those guys, how specific are you in talking specific position, field corner, boundary corner, safety, with these three in particular?
Yeah. No, we're not talking about field and boundary, because that's always open to, the ability to change from year to year, right and left. what we're talking about are two things: make-up speed, the ability to run, and length. The third is to have the ability to play the ball in the air. That's three. But first and foremost, length and speed are the two most important attributes at the position in which we were seeking this year. But we didn't get into the specifics as to whether you're a field corner or a wide corner. We wanted those two things, and then we'll kind of sort it out from there.
What about just in terms of corner safety? I mean, is there a projected safety among these three?
No, I mean, it's just Pryor. Pryor's the only guy. I mean, we really were, unless you were what we felt was a elite safety player that could come down and play without hesitation a slot receiver man-to-man, or i.e., a true third corner that could play safety. We were looking for corners.
Okay. Thank you.
John, Brian, you talked about having established a better calendar and a deeper evaluation protocol. How does that help you with the long-term management of your program instead of having to spend the next couple of months scrambling, and I guess maybe allows you to move forward and constantly be working ahead in recruiting?
Well, I don't know that we were ever scrambling per se, as much as it's allowed us to plan further ahead. I think everybody was kind of seeing 2 years ago when we went to the early signing day, how would this play out moving forward, especially in the summer months, in terms of who's going to take visits, things of that nature. So I think we were a bit reactive, grant you that. But I think now that we've established a pretty good calendar, it's allowed us really to plan accordingly a couple of years out in terms of what this looks like. So, as I said earlier, I think this is the established signing day for us, and we'll continue to operate accordingly, moving, a lot of the things that we do around, this signing day.
Brian, a couple of weeks ago, you were talking about speed and being more intentional in scouting that for this cycle. I was curious about the organizational and evaluation process of that, if it was any different from years past, because that's a trait that everyone's looking for. Everyone's trying to get faster. Why did this click for you this cycle?
So internal conversations, obviously routinely occur when it comes to speed. We wanted verifiable speed other than he's running a 4.4, okay? You're going to have to prove it. Show me you're running a 4.4. Give me verifiable times. We can no longer move forward on this is what he runs. So we either have to see it in person, we have to get verifiable speed numbers on these guys, or we're not moving forward. So it was, I think, just more intentional in terms of getting verifiable numbers.
And I guess in terms of accomplishing that goal, besides like digging deeper, it sounds like from a
I think that's what we're talking about.
And then maybe this sort of builds on Tyler's question, like the 32-6, was that maybe the biggest factor in accomplishing it, getting these guys to come here when, every other program in America is looking for guys who can run a 4.37.
Yes, but that's not it. It just gets your foot in the door. You still have to build relationships. There were other relationships that Chris had with other coaches that were deeper. You still have to be able to build those relationships and then still paint the picture as to why here. So, yeah, no doubt, 32-6 gets you in the door. We didn't get in the door if you weren't 32-6. Get you in the door, but like anything else, you still got to sell a vacuum cleaner. And not that that's what we're doing, but the analogy is you get in the door, but you got to sell it. And I thought we did a great job of selling who we are and why it was right for him. And great student, AP classes, all those things lined up. If those things don't line up, he's not buying. So 32-6 only gets you so far. All those other things have to line up too.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Yep.
We'll bring Coach Paulie down.
And there you heard from head coach Brian Kelly. Next up, we'll have a press conference with recruiting coordinator and special teams coordinator Brian Polian.
Just to piggyback some of the thoughts shared by Coach Kelly, we want to thank some folks as it relates to all the help that we get in recruiting. First and foremost, the relationships that we have on campus. We would not be able to function as a recruiting department if it weren't for these relationships, admissions, administratively, the athletic administration, frankly, our faculty and their willingness to meet with prospects. We can talk about how elite the education is here, but it's hard to do that justice unless our prospects aren't able to spend time with faculty on campus, and those folks willingly give of their time to spend time with our kids, which is unbelievable, and we're eternally grateful for it. Our recruiting staff did an excellent job. Dave Poloquin and Aaron Carney, Jazz, Riley, everybody really has done an awesome job, and I think the way that we manage the unofficial and official visits on this campus are incredible, and it's really a team effort. We never say thank you to our ambassadors. We have students from Notre Dame, St. Mary's, Holy Cross that volunteer to be a part of this program, and they make, in some cases, they're making the first impression on campus, and they do an excellent job. I also want to recognize, I don't know if you guys were able to see today, the creative team at FIM and what they did today with the parents volunteering to call in and kind of do the voiceovers. In a world where we're trying to be creative and a little bit different, I think that we did that today without looking silly. The folks over at FIM that came up with that idea and executed it was really excellent. Our staff really grinded hard on this class. I think we're 15 or 16 different states, a foreign country. We joke all the time, we'll go from, Hawaii to New Jersey to find the right people. Well, this year we did go from Hawaii to New Jersey to find the right people. And I think, too, we have to acknowledge the families of the coaches. We walk away from our wives and children. We're on the road, not only with the football season, but out in recruiting. And we owe them a debt of gratitude for, allowing us to do what we do to put this class together. So today's a culmination. It's a celebration. It's exciting. I know I don't sound excited, but we're going from the Stanford game to 2 weeks on the road to now bowl prep. So, but we're excited about this class. Coach Kelly was unbelievable. I think before anybody asks, the transition on the coaching staff, obviously that was a difficult decision for him. And when that decision was made, Coach Kelly did an unbelievable job of getting out and addressing it with the prospects. I think our staff in general did an unbelievable job of rallying up. But again, no one person is greater than the university. And in all these cases, like Coach said, the power of this brand overrides any single relationship, the power of this place. And that's what we found. There was not a lot of agita. There was a couple of very honest conversations, and then we moved forward, and we're excited to welcome all these guys into the class. From a football point of view, I think for me personally, a great reminder of the power of length was Kyle Hamilton this year. If you can get a really good athlete who's got length, that's better than just a really good athlete that doesn't. They're able, Foskey the same way, McGlinchey before that, just how powerful length is, and especially at the skill positions. And I think there was a concerted effort this year to, if we have two equal grades on a guy, let's go with the guy that's got a little bit more length. I know there was some consternation earlier in the year about the defensive back board and defensive back situation. I would tell you from our football staff's perspective, we feel more comfortable with this group than probably any group we've recruited in the last couple of years, because we know the most about this group. Terry Joseph, Todd Light, Clark Lee, myself, in the spring recruiting, we flew all over the country. We watched these young men work out at track, in spring football, in whatever it was that they were doing that we were allowed to evaluate. We watched these guys. We have verified times on every one of them, whether it be a track time, a 40 time at a camp. We know more about this group than we probably do in any group the last couple of years. So we're excited about this group and feel very positively about it. And then, it's just to reiterate what Coach said, ocean to ocean and finding fit. And as we talk about fit, and I'm reminded of this, this year has been, I can only speak for myself, this season has been the most fun I've ever had coaching a football team. And the reason is we've got great kids in this program. Obviously, there are 2 games we would have liked to have gone different, but when you get guys that fit your culture, it's so much fun to be around. And I think that feeling, that vibe, our prospects felt that. Our recruits felt how much our team enjoys being around one another. So that is just a reminder how valuable fit is. Because when you get guys that pick your place for the right reasons and want to be here and want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, it creates a really cool culture within the building. And hopefully we're building on that. We believe that we are. So with that, I'll open it to any questions anybody's got.
All right. Brian, that verifiable speed, how has that quest to get it changed over the years? What's your all-time horror story of not having it verified?
I mean, God bless the high school coaches. We love them, and they're always trying to help their kids. But I mean, if I always point this out, my experience with my dad in the NFL, if you look at how many guys go to the combine and can actually run in the low 4.4s, there's not very many of them. But when we talk to high school coaches, there's millions across the country. So the one thing that, I think Bill Reese, Clark Lee, Mike Elston, I think we started to have some serious conversations about how important track is and also the education of the difference between a good 100 time. What if a guy only runs a 200 meter? What if it's a distance guy? How do we translate a split in a 4x1 to a verified speed? I mean, we literally did some research on that in the winter into the spring in terms of, is he really fast? What does a really good 110 high hurdle, how does that equate to football speed? You know it when you see it on film, but, and the discipline to walk away if we did not have a verified speed, or to be transparent and say to a young man and a coach, we love your film, we love your makeup, your grades are great, but until we have a verified time, we can't pull the trigger. And that would motivate some kids to go out to a camp and post a 40, or in some cases, run a 40 and have a coach film it and send us the tape. I mean, so we had to get outside the box a little bit in terms of we can't just take anybody's word for it anymore. We got to find ways to verify the speed.
And then the other thing would be to avoid decommits in this era, and what in the environment that's out there, and everybody always constantly checking behind. How proud are you of that part of it? How much is there any agita that goes with that? No, there was not. By the way, my Italian wife would be very proud of my use of the word agita today. No, there wasn't, but I think that goes to fit too. Like when guys are picking Notre Dame for the right reasons, there's less of that. I honestly think too the recruiting calendar is part of that too. When you would sit there in January and into February with nothing to do but have coaches come through, and it takes a lot of discipline for kids to not take those calls. And then as guys were committing and spots were moving on boards, all of a sudden another school would come in. And, I think some of the wild, wild west of recruiting has slowed down here a little bit, but ultimately it becomes about fit and picking Notre Dame for the right reasons. Coach mentioned earlier, one thing that we've been very intentional about here in the last couple of years is the first time a prospect arrives on our campus, we're going to be very clear about who we are, what we stand for, what the demands are going to be here. Those distinctions, we're talking about them immediately. So that way, if a prospect decides to move forward with us, they know exactly who we are, less surprises. And I think that's equated to less surprises down the road.
Brian Kelly brought up the fact that a lot of these guys were really good two ways. When you are recruiting them, do you emphasize, and maybe it's kid to kid, the thought that they might play the other position than you originally thought? Do you discuss that with them, or is that just something that comes up once they're here and that's kind of understood?
I think it's a case-by-case basis. I think some guys who are dual position guys, you say, hey, what do you like better? And the coach, I don't care, just whatever will get me on the field faster. Then you can have those type of discussions. Other guys, coach, I see myself as this. So we're going to recruit them that way. It's funny, coach really keeps me balanced when it comes to this stuff because I have a very analytical mind and we have a scholarship model that we believe is responsible, and we're trying to adhere to that as best we can. And I think Coach Kelly every once in a while will help rein me back in and say, hey, let's just get as many good football players as we can get. They'll find their way into a position group one way or the other. There are some years that you have the flexibility to just recruit a bunch of good athletes and let it fall. This was a year where, honestly, we had to address the defensive back group. We had to. So we went into the class with, in that position, a very specific number that we had to hit and a very specific set of traits that we were looking for. So it kind of plays off each other as class to class, year to year.
What made Jordan Botelho worth going out to Hawaii and making those trips and recruiting him? And what maybe was the challenges of for him to identify you guys as a fit and projecting a guy that's a linebacker into a defensive end?
Well, the film would tell you the projection to defensive end is not as dramatic as we think it is. When you watch the tape, he's rushing in a two-point stance, and he's very heavy-handed. Like when he strikes you, he's punching you. He is a really unique combination of a high-intensity, violent football player. And again, this is still a collision sport that we play. He's a violent football player. And yet he's got a really good transcript from a high-quality high school, Catholic high school at St. Louis. I think one of the unique things about Jordan was with Myron, with Marist, to a certain degree with Alohi, there was, hey, Ohana, we've got Hawaiians here. I think Jordan's very proud of where he comes from, but he's also very proud of his Korean heritage. He's very proud of his Portuguese heritage. It's not just Jordan's not just another football player from Hawaii. Hey, they have a Hawaii pipeline going. He's just the next one in the group. He's not. I learned very quickly. He kind of would giggle about it and laugh, but we weren't necessarily connecting on that. We connected on Notre Dame. We connected on the similarities between our culture and the St. Louis culture at his high school. He loves Coach Lee. He loves Coach Elston. There was immediate connection there. In some cases, I'm just the guy that, drives everybody around in Hawaii because I know where I'm going. And I was Jordan's entree to Coach Lee and to Coach Elston and the point of contact. But I think he's a pretty unique individual, and it's been an education for me. He's a lot of fun to be around, and his family. But there are stories like that throughout our recruiting. I connected with the Mayer family. Why would I be engaged with a guy from Northern Kentucky who plays on the offensive side of the ball? Terry Joseph, connects, he was the connection to Pryor. I mean, our staff, I think, has done such a really good job of connecting all over the board, offense, defense, all the geographies. It's really about where does the relationship click. And that comes from our head coach, who has given us the directive that recruiting is going to be collaborative. We're not going to have rock star recruiters. It's going to be done by the staff. And it's really neat then to see the relationships develop across the board.
I believe last year you said that when it comes to academic fit, you look at more than just GPA, that the player has to have a desire to push themselves in the classroom. How do you go about evaluating that besides just looking at a transcript or the number of AP classes?
We have some serious conversations. I mean, I think the biggest thing here is the ability to communicate. There are guys here that succeed because they can have a conversation and communicate with a professor. So if a guy will come here and may have good grades, but we got to work really hard for them to get them to communicate with us, there's a hunch that, hey, that guy might have a hard time. I think Dave Poloquin, specifically on our staff, working in conjunction with our admissions office, I think they do a really good job of where might there be a concern, let's address it now, let's have some honest conversations. And I would tell you 8.5 to 9 times out of 10, we get the answer we're looking for. Sometimes you don't, but that's the nature of being at a high-level place. But you got to ask real questions, and you got to engage in conversations. And I think that we've done that.
And how much influence do maybe the players that are already on the team, how much do you speak to them maybe when it comes to how a player might fit in culturally?
Oh, that's invaluable feedback, and that comes from our head coach. If there's ever a doubt in our mind about whether or not a guy fits, we will immediately go to the host. And Coach Kelly will do that. And he'll ask, do you want this guy on your team? And that has worked in both directions. That has been times when we felt like a guy might fit, and our players came back and said, hey, when he's out in a social setting, it does not fit our mission here. It does not fit our culture. And we listen to that. And there have been times that we have thought, I don't know. And guys that we trust on our football team have come back and said, he's one of us. Don't worry about it. He's going to be fine. He will fit in just fine here. So that feedback is a critical part of our evaluation. And I mentioned the ambassadors earlier. Our ambassadors will give us feedback. When they're with a prospect and the family, say for a home game, and spend a great deal of time with them, more than we will, for an unofficial or official visit on a home game, and come back and say, hey, I don't know. There's some things that they were talking about that don't necessarily jive. It's not the decider, but it's a big piece of information as we're trying to put the puzzle together, no doubt.
Brian, what's the challenge when you know you have fewer scholarships available than maybe the average class of going about addressing that? And is there just less flexibility with, you have to have guys at specific positions and you have to drill down on that early on?
Yeah, it's you may have to slow down a little bit at a given position because can we get the best guy in the country, or are we looking to take the yes that is willing to come as quickly as possible, given the fact that, for lack of a better term, we have a salary cap. And then this was a year that we could not afford to take 25 guys. So, and then trying to get Coach Kelly and myself trying to see the big picture and get our guys on either side of the ball. Hey, this is the number that you're working with. You can't veer off from this. And then there's a little bit of, we got to be judicious in the sense that looking at our roster, this is the one thing I don't like about the new calendar, is that we're signing a class before underclassmen have to officially declare, or before the semester ends for that point. So trying to figure out, is there going to be movement on our roster? Now, we're a little bit of an outlier. We don't have 12 guys in the portal like we have seen in the last month at some other places. So trying to judge what will the movement be on our roster, and how does that affect our numbers and what we can do. And that's a world that I'm not comfortable with, because I don't like the chat boards talking about, well, we're at this, somebody's got to go. I think sometimes that conversation's a little irresponsible, because there are people reading that are wondering, is my son the one that's going to go? Well, we think long and hard about this, and we have plans, and we know what we're doing. So I think in those cases, it's like one of those deals where it's like, I wish people would just trust us, that we probably know a little bit more about our roster than the guy who's posting on the chat site. So
when you're recruiting in areas that maybe you guys aren't traditionally recruiting, I know you guys from Mississippi, Nebraska aren't necessarily areas that have consistent guys coming to Notre Dame. How do you go about that? Are you looking around in the room? Does anyone have ties to this area? Or
yep, that's the first place it starts, is do we know people in the area? But again, we're never going to limit ourselves in terms of where we'll go to find a guy that will fit, and to pull Offord and Watts and, guys. Colorado has, I can't remember Colorado being a big feeder area for us. But again, it speaks to when we find them, if they're wired the right way, if they want what our university can present to them, and we believe that we can compete for a national championship with them as a player, then it should not matter where they come from. It just takes a little extra legwork at the beginning to find out about the schools, to find out about the communities, and see if we can connect the dots. But in most cases, we can. So
thanks.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Happy holidays.
You heard there from head coach Brian Kelly, and then the special teams and recruiting coordinator here at Notre Dame, Coach Brian Polian. But now we are going to reveal this 2020 class of signees, a really exciting group for Notre Dame. And we will start with the first national letter of intent that came in today. Alexander Ahrensberger, coming from Dusseldorf, Germany, a defensive end at 6'6.5", 239 pounds, really athletic, long player that Coach Mike Elston has to be excited to have on the defensive line. The next NLI to come in was from Kevin Bowman, a tight end from Red Bank, New Jersey, Red Bank Catholic High School, 6'4", 226 pounds, a great blocking tight end coming in for this Notre Dame offense. The third NLI to come in this morning was from Chris Tyree, the running back from Chester, Virginia, Thomasdale High School, 5'9.5", 179 pounds, extremely fast, a 40 time under 4.4, clocked at 4.37. He actually won the fastest man competition at the opening. Fourth NLI that came in this morning was from Landon Bartleson from Harrodsburg, Kentucky, Boyle County High School, which is in Danville, Kentucky. 5'11.5", 181 pounds, a really physical player, very fast as well. And his high school team at Danville, Boyle County High School, they made it all the way to the state finals in the state of Kentucky. Next up, along the offensive line, Michael Carmody, an offensive tackle from Mars Area High School in Mars, Pennsylvania, 6'6", 292 pounds, a Notre Dame fan through and through. And if you recognize his last name, his older brother, Robbie, a member of the men's basketball team here at Notre Dame. Mike, a great basketball player himself. The next letter to come in was from Jay Brunel, a wide receiver from St. John's High School in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts. His hometown is Paxton, Massachusetts. 6'1.5", 201 pounds. Put up some great numbers for St. John's. Had over 1,000 receiving yards in each of the last two seasons. The seventh national letter of intent to come in this morning was from Michael Mayer, a tight end from Independence, Kentucky, played for Covington Catholic High School. 6'5", 234 pounds, extremely athletic. A good comparison for this class of tight ends with Mayer and Bowman to the 2017 class of Brock Wright and Cole Kmet. This is a really talented group that Notre Dame is bringing in. The eighth letter of intent to come in today was from Isaiah Pryor. He is a 6'2", 202-pound safety from Lawrenceville, Georgia, a transfer from Ohio State. He played in 31 games in his career for the Buckeyes, graduated from Ohio State. He will be eligible immediately for the 2020 season, and the staff is really excited to see what he can bring to this defense. The next national letter of intent to come in was from Alec Spikes, a long snapper from Ellicott City, Maryland, and St. John's College in Washington, D.C. 6'1", 205 pounds, one of the best long snappers in the country. He'll look to follow in the footsteps of John Shannon, who won the Manley Award as the best long snapper in the country. Next up was the quarterback in this class, Drew Pine from New Canaan, Connecticut. New Canaan High School, 6 foot, 181 pounds, grew up a huge Notre Dame fan. Instead of his Saturday morning cartoons, he was watching Rudy, also was a huge fan of Brady Quinn, and that was why he wore number 10 throughout his career. Next up in this class, we had Clarence Lewis, a 6 foot, 180 pound cornerback from Edison, New Jersey, played for Mater Dei High School. His high school team also made it to the state title game in New Jersey. Great size, speed, and length, played both ways in high school. Next up was Xavier Watts, a 5'11", 185-pound wide receiver from Omaha, Nebraska, and Burke High School. Played wide receiver and safety, has tremendous breakaway speed, and the coaching staff is really excited about what he can bring to this offense. Next up, we had Caleb Offred, a cornerback from South Haven, Mississippi, 6'1", 170 pounds. The first player from the state of Mississippi recruited under Brian Kelly, just south of Memphis. He has great footwork and good speed as well. Next up in this class was Riley Mills, a 6'4.5", 250-pound defensive end from Lake Bluff, Illinois, and Lake Forest High School. Tremendous size, but also very mobile along the defensive line. And if you recognize that high school, that was the same high school as quarterbacks coach Tom Reese, Lake Forest, just outside of Chicago. 15th in this class, we had Aiden Keana-Aina, the defensive tackle, nearly 6'3", 302 pounds. He's nicknamed the Big Kahuna, has great size, a strong lower body, and Coach Elston has to be excited to see what he can bring to this defensive line. Next up was Jordan Johnson, a 6'2", 180-pound wide receiver from St. Louis, Missouri, attended DeSmet Jesuit High School. He won a state championship this year in Class 6 in Missouri. Tremendous size and speed, will be a great receiver on the outside for this Notre Dame offense. And the final two national letters of intent to come in today, Tosh Baker, a 6'7", 283-pound offensive tackle from Scottsdale, Arizona, attended Pinnacle High School. Very mobile for his size. He's a great basketball player as well, similar to Carmody along the offensive line. And the final national letter of intent to come in today, coming from Jordan Botello. He is a defensive end from Honolulu, Hawaii, in the St. Louis school, 6'2", 229 pounds. He helped St. Louis to their 4th straight state championship in the state of Hawaii. Another tremendous class in the books for this Notre Dame Fighting Irish program, and they continue to build 3 straight seasons of 10 wins or more. It's an outstanding group. A big thank you to the entire recruiting office, the entire coaching staff for all of the work they put in, and it all comes to fruition today. Also a thank you to Fighting Irish Media for putting together our signing day special today. Another tremendous group in the door for Notre Dame. A thank you to Caroline Pineda as well, Coach Brian Kelly, Coach Brian Polian, and the entire coaching staff. For all of us here at Fighting Irish Media, I'm Connor Klingen, and as always, go Irish.